There's no.
Well, I don't mean, I guess it's in an exhibit, I guess you can look
I
at
have
it.
pictures to go with. Some pictures to go with that.
Okay, show me what you got.
You don't want to give her any notes or anything.
No.
You know,
Well, I'm
unless you have
okay.
to refresh her memory.
Well, I have,
Okay.
is this,
Those
okay.
pictures,
All
the
right.
facility.
All right. No, I'm okay.
Okay, you ready? Go back
I'm
on the
ready.
record.
Okay, now that,
Yes.
oh, Miss Durrell, I know we've known each other a while. What I want to do is I want to go through this complaint with you, and I'd like to ask you to substantiate, the complaint, whether or not there are some problems here or there are not. The first complaint, the first issue is under LARS 37595A1, says that you fail to possess apparatus and equipment sufficient for the ready and full teaching of the entire equipment, of the entire curriculum. Now, what I'd like to ask you is, I know that there's a list of things that you need to have.
Yes, sir.
I understand that you need to have 6 shampoo bowls.
Yes, sir.
How many do you have?
We have 8.
And are all of them working and operating?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever received a complaint, whether it be by an inspection from Ms. Stocksville or anyone else for that matter, that indicated you had insufficient working shampoo?
No, sir.
All right. And let me just tell the board, the reason I'm going through it to this extent is because it's very broad, and I don't know that there's any actual claim with regards to that. But hair dryers, how many do you have?
Six, 7, 8, 10.
Okay. Do you know how many you're required to have?
I think 6.
Okay. And are all of them working and operating?
Yes, sir.
All right. What about manicure tables? Do you have 3 manicure tables?
We have 8 or 10. We have 8. We have 10, but 8, we only use 8 of them. The other we put magazines on.
Okay. All right. Do you know how many you're required to have?
I think it's 6.
Okay. But you have 8.
Yes, sir.
Cold wave equipment for 6 permanents. Can you explain that to me and tell me how?
That's the perm rods. We have tons of perm rods. I mean, you only need about 40 to perm somebody's hair. We must have a good 200-300. There's a picture.
For 6, well, it says cold wave equipment. Is that what that
That's your
is?
perm rods. to put the
Sufficient for 6
Caucasian
permanents?
perms in.
Okay, all right. You said you have a couple of hundred?
Tons.
Okay. Trays for supplies.
We have 28.
You have 28. Do you know how many you would be required to have?
Maybe 10.
Okay, all right. Has any inspection, so far with what we've gone through, have you had any inspections where they indicated that you had insufficient, say trays, hair dryers,
No, sir.
shampoo bowls, anything like that?
No, sir.
All right. Covered waste containers, do you know if those are required?
They are.
And do you have the sufficient number? Do you know
Yes,
how many-
sir.
Do you know how many you
I
have?
think we have 28.
Okay.
I counted them.
Do you know how many you are required to have?
I want to say it's 10 when I read the whole book. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Mannequins, how many do you have? Do you know?
We must have good going about 80 to 90.
Okay. Do you know how many you required to have?
I know it's way over the amount that it is. Maybe, I guess 20, 30.
Okay. Do you have one wet and dry sanitizer for each occupied station?
Yes, sir.
All right. How many working stations do you have?
20.
All right. Do you know how many you're required to have?
20.
Covered containers for soil towels, do you have sufficient amount for each station?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's not for each station.
Okay,
It's in the dispensary area where you put dirty towels.
okay, do you have a covered container for sheets as well?
Yes, sir.
How about locker space? How many locker spaces do you have?
About 50.
About how many?
50.
Okay, do you know how many you're required to have? 1 per student?
Yes, sir.
What's the most amount of students that you have?
Average 17. at the max.
Okay, and you said you had 50, about
He would
50
tell.
lockers, okay. Now, there's a requirement that you have to have a classroom with a minimum of 400 square feet. Do you know if you have that?
Yes, sir, we do.
Do you have the modern anatomy charts?
Yes, sir.
Do you have the chalkboards, 4 by 6 feet chalk?
Yes, sir.
How about seating for the facilities for the classroom work? Do you
Yes,
have
sir.
that?
We have two we have two theory classrooms with 20 seats.
Okay. Now, you have rooms that are used strictly for classrooms?
Yes, sir.
Classroom work only?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in all the inspections you've received, since this complaint has been filed or prior to that, have you ever been told or have you ever received a violation indicating that you did not have sufficient equipment?
No, sir.
All right. Okay. Now, let's go on to the next one. Now, this is one that I think we've had some controversy with. Failing to have the school supervised by a registered teacher of cosmetology in active practice
Yes,
with
sir.
at least 24 months of teaching experience in an accredited school of cosmetology, approved by the board during all hours of operation, approved by the board during all hours of actual operation. Now, what is your background? How many years do you have in teaching experience?
I've been teaching close to 20 years. I taught 10 years for Lockworks in Aveda, and then Terry Blackwell with the Aveda Institute sold the school in Iberia, a banker, a retired banker.
Okay, so you have at least 24 months of
21,
teaching.
maybe even.
All right. Now, there's been some discussion about the fact that you need a second teacher.
Yes, sir.
Would you explain to the board why it is that you thought that you may not need a second teacher prior to recently?
Yes, sir. I didn't understand that I needed a second teacher because I was under the understanding that I only needed one teacher per 20 students. And I went back to read it, and I still thought that it was one teacher per 20 students. Then what I did was I looked at the law at the back of the book, and I didn't understand. I noticed it started to say 2 teachers. But then I called the registrar's office, and the registrar's office said that it hadn't been promulgated into the gold book, and that he didn't think that it was legally binding to make me have to have a second teacher. So at that point, I said, well, I need to find out if I really need a second teacher. I'm hearing that from the registrar's office that I don't need a second teacher because it hasn't been binded into the gold book. And the gold book hasn't been, it's been revised, but it hasn't been promulgated and it's not legally binding. That is my understanding.
Okay, all right. Well, and you've had some discussions since then, and I understand that based on discussions you've had with the institute here as well as other people, that you have hired a
Yes.
second teacher.
Yes.
And who is the second teacher?
Her name is Miss Amanda Duffy.
Okay, and does she work during hours of operation with you?
Yes, sir.
Have you registered her with the Cosmetology Institute here?
I didn't send her teacher's license in here. Her teacher's license is already at the board. What we have to do is send in a instructor's roster. So you send them in every 3 months. So the time hasn't come for me to put her on the roster yet.
Okay, but she's
Her
on
3
the
months.
roster. She's teaching at your
Definitely, her license posted at my school.
Okay.
Yes.
So her license is posted for all to see at the store.
For what?
Well, her license is posted in an obvious location.
No, it's in the office. We don't put them for the public to see
Okay.
out there
All right.
because they have personal information.
But you do have her
Yes,
license
sir.
posted in your
Yes,
office
sir.
as
Yes,
one
sir.
of the teachers. So
Yes,
you
sir.
now have 2 teachers. Do you
Yes,
know
sir.
what her history is? How long she's been qualified?
Miss Amanda been teaching. Miss Amanda just retired from AT&T in the corporate world, but she's been teaching a long time, part-time. She taught in New Orleans and she's taught in Lafayette too.
Okay. And,
But she's been having an instructor's license for about 20 years.
okay, so you have a 3-month term coming up,
Right?
and at that point in time, you're going to register her
Right,
with the
correct.
Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Now, we have okay, the next one is, it says failing to maintain accurate records of attendance of each student and records of progress of each student in achieving the required proficiency. Okay.
Yes, sir.
What are your guidelines or rules at your school for keeping track of accurate records for attendance? What do you do?
For attendance, what we do is the student have to, when it comes, the policy procedure manual says that the students have to be 80% in compliance. That's what we expect. That doesn't always happen, you know, and it requires that the students sign in and they have to clock in. But we would like them to be 80% in compliance with the attendance.
All right, so they're required to clock in, do they clock out for lunch?
They clock out for lunch.
Okay, then they clock back in before they leave, but after they get back from lunch, and they clock out at the end of the day.
Correct.
And those records are there, and they're for viewing by any inspector that comes
Yes,
to the
sir.
school.
Mhm.
Okay, have you ever received a violation that reflected that they were not appropriately clocking in and clocking out?
No, sir.
All right. Now, what do you file, you know, I mean, as far as instructions are concerned, lectures, discussion at the end of each chapter, instructions through audio DVD tapes, is there a book that you file or an instruction manual that you
Yes,
file?
sir. I use the My Lady cosmetology textbook, and I have the My Lady curriculum course management guide. And normally what I do is I follow the National Institute of Cosmetology that says that it just changed. It used to be 10% nails, now it's 15% nails. It used to be 10% skin, now it's 50% skin, and I think it's 50% hair and 30% sciences. So that's the national that tells me that's how much the student has to learn. So, and the curriculum, the course management guide is already set up like that, but you personalize your curriculum to reflect your school, because each school is individual. It depends on how well the student comprehends, whether or not the student is able to deliver. It just depends. Each student is different.
Okay, what I'd like to show you, if you could identify this for the board.
Yes,
Is
sir.
this your sign-in sheet?
Yes, sir.
When you say clock in, is this the sheet they use?
Yes.
When they sign in the morning?
They sign in the morning.
Sign out?
Yes, sir.
You know, time out, and then they sign back in for lunch?
Yes, sir.
After lunch, et cetera.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I'd like to just introduce this in as the sign-in sheet, which is, you'll have to tell me which one it is. D3, I guess. Is it D3? D3. Yes, D3. Okay. All right. You said you utilized the Milady Thompson cosmetology curriculum.
Yes, sir.
You said your understanding that that curriculum is approved by the Board of Cosmetology.
It is, and there's another book approved that Pivot Point had. I think the Pivot Point is and so on. They have, there's two books, but I prefer the My Lady textbook.
Let me show you. See if you can describe this. Tell us what this is. What I have attached.
Yeah, this is the course management guide for the NILTEC curriculum. And it basically goes through, it's an example of a lesson plan. And it comes as a basic lesson plan to say what the student, how much sciences the student should have, how much skin they should have, and da-da-da-da-da. But, and it comes with objectives. It comes with questions at the end of the test. And it comes with an exam review book. And I have videotapes for them to watch too, and play different games with each other.
Okay, let me ask you, and ladies and gentlemen, usually, I'm gonna skip past all the names and come back and I'm gonna go to what is listed as E. It says, by failing to establish a grading system and require passage of examination for issuance of diplomas. Is that reflect with the grading system?
Yes, sir.
That's what you were just describing? That's the one you use?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you get that, is that the one you get through Milady?
Yes, sir, that's a course management guide through my lady.
And is that the course management that you understand
I got it.
you're supposed to follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's,
And at the end of it, it has a multiple choice test.
okay, that's the test and the question.
And this is the ledger that I customized to the school, comes out of the curriculum. I customized it for the school from the curriculum.
And this is the
The
test.
recorded
result.
grade,
So this
exactly.
is just an example,
No, that's an example right there.
that's a sample. Okay.
That's a sample.
And how you do it.
Yes, sir.
And that is attached to the Milady Standard Nail Technology, I think you should.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And course management.
Yes, sir.
And that's the one you use.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to offer file and introduce this, and now there is some handwritten notes on there. It says included grading, lesson plan, revised question exam, and grade record.
Yes, sir.
That's what you have
Yes,
attached
sir.
to this.
Yes, sir.
That would be D4. And you follow those guidelines
Yes, sir.
when it comes to grading and everything else.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, what I do is I have the student, when we take a test, I have them record it. So at that time, they know exactly what they did.
Okay.
We'd like to ask Ms. Morris if she has any objections to this.
No
objection.
Okay.
Submitted.
Then we'll go to the next one. It says, by failing to conduct a course of practical training and technical instruction, including lectures, discussion, instruction, mechanical application for the basic course of cosmetology in accordance with the schedule filed with the board pursuant to such and such, beginning January 2012 to 2015, is, what is, that's the, you follow the Milady textbook?
For that one too.
And-
Yes, sir.
Basically, you have an orientation you go through,
Yes, sir.
which I believe is one of the requirements with regards to communication, life skills, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Do you teach everything is required under that
Yes, sir.
course management guide?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you what I have here. I'd like you to explain to us what this is and if this is what
Yes,
you're
sir.
referring
Okay.
to.
Yes,
I
sir.
know it's not the entire textbook.
No, no, this just.
That's the
is-
cover.
Yes, sir.
Would you explain to
Yeah.
the board what you have attached to it?
Yes, sir. This is the course management guide for cosmetology. And inside of it, I gave examples of the lesson plan. Okay, the lesson plan. And from another My Lady, this one is to be able to evaluate the student's performance level for their practical work. So it lets you know exactly what the student should be able to execute on the mannequins or on a manicure or pedicure or scalp treatment or whatever it is that they're doing, flat ironing. So this is just a basic performance test.
Okay, but the textbook that you follow, that has a section on sciences?
Oh, yeah,
What
yeah.
is that
It-
about?
It's right here, it's right here. The cosmetology curriculum requires that the student be able to comprehend 30% of it is sciences, the
Okay.
science.
Does that deal with general anatomy?
Anatomy, physiology, the skin, yes.
Nails, probably.
Electricity is actually in sciences. I don't think it should be in sciences, but that's my opinion. It's
All
in
right.
science, I mean, I guess I'm a woman.
You follow the section on hair care, and well, that's, you teach under this, Milady?
Yes, sir.
Skin care, general science, and salon business.
Yes, sir.
I'll assume salon business, you show them how to seek employment, things like that.
Exactly.
And that's the course material that you use?
Yes, sir.
The textbook material?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to offer, file, and introduce that at the record as D4. Now, the next one says, by failing to conduct.
Probably want to make this one D5. Ms. Morris, do you have any objections to
No
D5?
objection.
D5,
Make a list, Mr. Wade, start writing a list.
Don't do that to me, I'm gonna get it from you. Trying to focus here. You don't mind sharing that list with me? Okay. All right. Okay. Now, the next one talks about failing to conduct a course of practical training, technical instruction, lectures, discussion, et cetera, for the basic course of aesthetics in accordance with the schedule filed with the board.
Yes, sir.
You follow the same textbook?
Same textbook.
All right, and in that textbook, when it comes to aesthetics, you talk about orientation, general science, skin science, et cetera, business skills and things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
As well.
Yes, sir.
And I assume that what we have here is that you've attached is the basic guidelines for aesthetics that you use
Yes, sir.
in the Milady textbook.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you hand that to me, please? Thank you. Okay, and that's it there. And what
Yes,
you
sir.
have attached to that is the basic curriculum list and things of that nature. Could you
Yes.
tell us if there's anything else that's attached?
It has, what it comes with, what I like about this, you get a textbook with it, but it comes with the outline, so that, especially like when you're training instructor trainees, a lot of times it's like Clef Notes. You use Clef Notes, it gives you the meat of the subject.
And that's what that
That's what
is?
this is, it gives that to you. It has the objectives, it has the questions at the end of the chapter, then you have the exam review, and it gives you puzzles for the students to engage them in learning, make it fun for them. And it comes with a multiple choice test at the end of it.
Okay, and that's the guideline you
It's the
follow when
guideline
it comes
I follow.
to the curriculum with the ICI aesthetic curriculum?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, would you please give that then to be D6?
You gave the notice. Ms. Morris, do you have any objections?
She feel terrible.
Just wait.
Oh, geez, here we go, okay. All right. Now, the next one says, failing to conduct a course of practical training and technical instruction, lectures, et cetera, basic course of manicure. I assume that you follow the same, what do you follow with regards to manicure? What technical outfit?
Oh, they already have it, Ms. Lane.
Okay, we went through that. That
Yes,
was the
sir.
first one.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
she would
Yes, sir.
object if I
Yes,
tried to
sir.
do that again?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't want to do it again.
Okay, all right. So we've been through that, asked and
Yeah,
answered. Okay, let's move on to the next. Yeah, all right. My wife would probably know what all this meant.
Yes.
All right, then the next one is, it says that, hold on one second. It says, by engaging in unprofessional conduct likely to endanger the health, safety, and welfare of the public by, and what they have in the complaint is that you fail to instruct students enrolled in the cosmetology course in accordance with the cosmetology curriculum from January 2012 to 2015. What, if any, response do you have that you could tell this board with regards to how you follow that curriculum?
Well, I'm always at the premises. I'm always with the students. We are a very small school. Sometimes, right now, we have actually 6 students. Even if you have a student in the manicure room, this is adult education. Those students should be able to stay in the next room by themselves. We have aesthetics. We don't have any aesthetic students right now. And we have Cosmo, which is a clinic floor right there by the manicure room. This is adult education. If you go to a university, and that's what I tell the students all the time, you're preparing to be an adult. It's adult education. You have to be independent. You have to be secure in yourself. You have to have respect for others. You need to smile and everything else. So endangering a person, that's unheard of.
Okay. And do you, how many hours are you required to have of instruction before you can take your test?
They can take their test at 1,000 hours written. Their practical, they can't take until they have 1,500 hours.
1,500, okay. And does that include scientific concepts?
Yes, sir.
You cover that in your school?
Yes, sir.
Physical services?
Yes, sir.
Chemical services,
Yes,
hair
sir.
design,
Yes, sir.
et cetera, et cetera.
Some divisions we cover more than others because with practical, when you think about the practical, because you tend to depend on the clinic floor to give them the experience they want. And every student that starts school the first thing they want to do on the first day of class is cut and color, cut and color. So sometimes they feel like, you know, I don't get enough of this, I don't get enough of that, but they can practice on each other. They have their mannequin to practice on, so.
You follow the curriculum?
Yes, sir, I do follow the curriculum.
And you instruct accordingly
Yes,
with
sir.
regards to, it comes to the aesthetic
Yes, sir.
curriculum as well?
Yes, sir.
All right, so everything that you put into the record so far, you follow the Milady curriculum?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, at one time you said I think do you exceed the course requirements at all in aesthetics or anything like that? Do you give more instruction than you deem?
Well, especially being that we're a small school, they get to get a lot more hands-on, a lot more personal attention, and it's just a whole lot more individualized treatment. And they get to get more theory work in more than anything else, and the students like that.
Would your response be the same if we were talking about manicuring instruction?
Yes, sir.
That you follow the appropriate guidelines?
Yes, sir.
That they probably get more than being it's a small school than intended. Now, there's a complaint, part of the complaint is that you failed to timely register all students with the board within 60 days after the students start school. Could you explain that to us, please?
Mr. Landry, I'm not gonna sit up here and lie. Sometimes I make mistakes.
Okay.
So, I know that I'm supposed to have them registered at 60 days, but if I may have gone over a day, I really don't know. But I do know that is the rule, and I do want to follow the rule. So,
Okay.
but I'm
So-
not perfect. I
so
do
you-
make mistakes.
There have been some occasions when you have failed to timely register.
I hadn't gotten any, I didn't get any written notice or any disciplinary action saying that I didn't register student on time.
Okay.
But I mean, everybody's human.
To your knowledge, there may have been occasions when...
Yeah, because sometimes I'm waiting on the licenses and the licenses don't come in time as they should. And Miss Deborah Johnson, a couple of times, she's called me to say, you know, where's the purple paperwork, and so that does help. And she has called me for testing. She'll say, you know, I want to get this clear. Where's the paperwork?
All right. Now we're going to go to what about when it comes to certifying student hours, activities not devoted to the prescribed curriculum? Have you had occasion when that has been a problem?
My students really don't go to outside activities. We only had one student that was really interested in anything like hair shows or trade shows. So I only had one student that was interested. The others really don't ask about that.
Okay, do you routinely document their hours?
Yes, sir.
And have you ever received a complaint or a violation for failing to do that?
No, sir.
What about overtime or double time hours? We're down at number 6, ladies and gentlemen, on page 3 of 5. Well, we actually, do you have, let's go to number 7, I'm sorry. Maintain a professional department within the school of operating a beauty shop or salon connection with a school environment. What is that about?
Well, the students service the clients, but there are some students that need more help than other students.
Okay.
And so I help them according to what they need. Some students, you can go through the consultation and let that student go ahead and complete that client. But there are other students who may need you to be there along the way. So it depends on how well that student is able to execute whatever that client desires. I am a hands-on person. I do like to help my students, and often they do come ask me to help them. So if I feel that they need me to help them, I go and help them. But I have signs inside the school that says supervised work student work, but supervised by an instructor. So we are to supervise them. We're not supposed to complete the service from the beginning to end. But even in supervising, you do have to make sure that you monitor that student, especially with chemicals.
Okay.
And
but-
even sometimes roller sets, to be honest with you, and shampoo sets, it seems like it's simple, but it's not simple for every student. Depends on that student's ability to comprehend what they're supposed to do.
But-
And we have some special needs students in the past. So when you have special needs students, that's a totally different story. Or you have, where my school is located, you have students that come from the most challenging backgrounds there is in New Iberia. New Iberia has a very crime high rate. We are located from right across the street from where there's, just last week we had a raid with sawed-off rifles like this. So this is the population I'm serving. So yes, it's the truth. It's really the truth. Yes.
Ellen, you doing okay?
I'm sorry, I talk fast. I'm sorry. Everybody tell me, "Look, slow down, slow down." I'm talking French, Michelle.
Okay. All right.
Tell us if you can.
Under number 8 on page 3 of 5, we've already talked about the 2 instructors. You said, you gave us your understanding of that previously, and you indicated that you have 2 instructors at this
Yes, sir.
time, and when you understand now. that you-
Yes, but let me make it clear about this second instructor, Mr. Landry. Amanda Duffy, she can only work on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So I wanted to document that because it's Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, some Fridays, but she can't do any Saturdays. So,
Okay. It says failing to post all student registrations in a conspicuous place at the school.
what I do is I post it inside the administrative office. I don't post it, what I do is when they get their hour, we do hours on the 10th, I go over with them individually, but I post it inside the front administrative office. And the students don't go into that office, but I do go over their hours with them individually.
Okay. Have you ever been cited for a violation for failing to post the students'
No, sir.
registrations?
No, sir.
Now it says failing to provide a textbook to each student upon registration. Did you provide a textbook?
They get their textbook on the first day of class and their kit, but we do kit check, but they don't get to use their textbooks and kits. They don't use their kits because I have all the combs and brushes on the clinic floor for them to use so that they can keep their kit clean, so when they come to State Board, they don't have to go out and purchase new items. Because if you give that student that kit, they're going home and do hair illegally, and they're going to have the combs and brushes dirty, and when the inspector come in, I'm gonna get written up.
Okay. Next one is failing to post a monthly summary of hours. Well, let me get back to the previous one. You ever not give somebody a textbook?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. When they register, is when they get their textbook?
They get the textbook, yes,
Okay.
sir.
You ever fail to post a monthly summary of hours earned by each student?
It's posted in the administration. I go over it with the student, over the hours report with the students, and then I post it in the administration office.
So you review the hours with the
Yes.
students, and
Yes.
then it's posted in the
Exactly.
administrative office, okay.
Because I had a problem with people trying to figure out other people's social security numbers. So that's why I don't, and I only did the last 4 digits, but still, and they start fussing and gossiping about how many hours.
All right, another complaint that they have, has been filed is failing to sterilize, sanitize, or dispose of all tools and implements that come in contact with the client. What is your procedure for sterilization?
Sterilization is not practiced in the salon. Sterilization is for hospitals that have autoclave. So I don't do any sterilization.
Okay.
That's for the hospitals.
What about
Cosmetology only does sanitation and the levels of decontamination are sanitation and disinfectant. And you use a hospital level grade disinfectant. But no cosmetology salons do not sterilize, only hospitals.
Okay, and what is your procedure for disinfect, sterilize, sanitize, or dispose of?
If you're sanitizing, that's just to reduce the amount of germs that's found on the tool. What you're gonna do is remove all the hair from the comb and brushes, then you're gonna rinse it, then you're gonna wash it, and then you're gonna disinfect it. That's for your sanitizer. If you're gonna disinfect it, then you put it in your barbicide jar, which would be the third level, and let it dry for 15 minutes.
And is this what you instruct all your students to do?
We have the cleanest school in the state of Louisiana. They understand that very well.
Have you ever received a violation for failure to sanitize or failure to clean or decontaminate?
No, sir.
Let's go down to 13. It says failure to properly supervise students performing services for clients, including but not limited to allowing manicuring students to perform hairdressing.
The manicure students they do manicure. What they do is, like I told you, every school is different. The students do the hair, and the manicure student come and massage the hands while the client is under the dryer getting their hair dried, so that they can get their practicals in too with the massaging. So they're each getting what they need to fulfill their quotas.
But you're not allowing manicuring students to perform
No,
hairdressing?
sir.
Okay. Have you ever received any kind of a written complaint or reprimand from the inspectors with regards?
No, sir.
We'll go down to 16, ladies and gentlemen. Using products on customers other than in accordance with the product instructions.
No, sir.
Okay, what do you do? You're using a product, do you have instructions that go with it?
Every product comes with the directions and how to use it, and it also comes with a list from the EPA to let you know what makes it hazardous, what level of combustion, how it should be stored. It comes with directions of how to store it, and it comes with directions of how to use it.
Okay.
It's called your material safety data sheet.
All right. Now, we're going to go back, ladies and gentlemen, to the first page, page 1 of 5. And I would like to go over each specific before we get there, what is the policy of the school with regards to register students who complete the required hours? What do you do? Required hours of training for application, course, or for testing. What is your
Well, they can take their, like I said, they can take their test, their written test at 1,000 hours. We send it to the state board. They have to have their money order for the written. I do $100 because they get their license in with it, but you can break it down where they send in 25, and then the initial license is $50. But I usually encourage them to just send the whole 100 in at one time.
How long has it been that you've been in compliance, in good standing with the Board of Cosmetology?
12 years.
12 years. Okay, let me get to the first name. You familiar with Angela Baudouin?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell me what you remember about Angela Baudouin.
Actually, Angela is a very pleasant little student. She's a hard little worker. She's stronger in her written than her practical. She was stronger in her written than her practical. She came to school and did what she had to do. I don't have any problems with Angela. I mean, she's a good little student. She's a fine student.
I'm looking at my notes.
She did have challenges with her practical work, but it wasn't anything that was impossible to achieve. All students, they are either stronger in one area or the other. So they just have to, if they're not strong in their practical, they have to work a little bit harder than in their written. So.
Has she earned her hours?
I didn't get her a license saying that she earned her 1,500 hours. From what I'm understanding, she did get a license, but I wasn't I didn't fill out the paperwork for her. So I think she came through Mr. Steve to have her paperwork done, from what I'm understanding.
What do you mean by that?
She came, Miss Donna Bart, she texted me one night, I was driving, she said that, I think that you need to go out and get yourself a lawyer, because Angela has gotten her a lawyer, and she's going to state board on you. And it's her, Dina, and a couple other girls. I'm not one of those girls. I have the text message and have it printed out in my binder. And basically, that's all I know about Angela, is she was a good student.
Did she complete her 1,500 hours?
She completed her 1,500 hours.
Has she contacted you with any complaints?
No, sir. She didn't come back to the school to get her kit. She left her kit at the school. Miss Donna Bart did call me and asked me if she could pick up Angela's kit because she didn't want to come back to the school. Said Mr. Steve told her not to come back to the school. But
You keep saying Mr. Steve. Who are you talking?
Mr. Steve Young, he's the executive director here.
You understand he told her not to come back to the school?
That's what I'm told. He told Miss Angela. Angela never did tell me that. Miss Donna said that when she called to come and pick her kid up, and she said that she wanted to pick Angela's, if it was okay, she'd pick Angela's kid up too. I told Angela needs to send me a certified letter saying that she can pick up her kid, and I didn't have a problem with it. But I've never seen Angela since the last day that she was there, and she didn't send me a certified letter saying for Miss Donna to pick up her kid. The state policy and procedure manual says that you have to pick up your kit in 30 days.
Okay. And that's all you know about Angela's
Yes, sir.
situation? Because they're claiming that you didn't maintain accurate records of her attendance. Do you know anything about that?
No, sir. She punched out perfectly on her time card. She's very strategic to the point.
Okay.
She's very neat.
Okay, the next one is Donna Bork.
Mhm.
Tell us what you remember about Donna Bork. Donna Bork, they're claiming you didn't keep accurate records of her hours.
Well, like I said, I got the call from Miss Donna, and Miss Donna said that I needed to come out and go and find a lawyer because Mr. Steve told them that, I think it was back in March, I'm not really sure what it was, that he was going to bring them before the board and let them stand before the board and tell the board what they need to tell him about me. And then they were going to go back and bring me the following month after they came and said what they needed to say about me. Miss Donna was in the school. She was at the school for about 3 years. She was there a very long time, but her practical work, it was decent by the time she left, and her written was really good. I knew she would pass her written. Miss Donna, she was a good student. I mean, she was very pleasant. She didn't come to school often. In the beginning, she came fairly decent, but as the 2 years passed, she didn't come anymore. She had gone to the, she ended up recruiting another student for me from the Cypress Bayou Casino, which was Vanette Hartman, because Miss Donna used to go hang out at the casino all the time and skip school. And Miss Vanette Hartman would come and tell me, Miss Donna said, don't tell Miss Nelson you didn't see me you saw me at the casino. I mean, this is adult education. If you don't want to come to school, I can't make you come to school. The only difference is I'm private. I'm not federally funded, because then I would have to make sure that they're 80% in they reach what their attendance level. But other than that, I don't have no problem with Miss Donna.
Okay.
They were good students. I never had an exchange of words with them. I never had a fuss with them. There was absolutely no conflict at all.
All right. She took her written test?
She did take her written
Take
test.
her practical?
She took her written test at the end of her 1,000 hours, and then she texted me to tell me that she had called the board, and the board told her that she had reached her 1,000 hours the previous year. And so right after she called, I got a call from one of the state board workers saying, asking me where was Miss Donna's paperwork, and has she reached her hours? I said, yes, she has reached her hours. and I'd be putting them in the mail. I immediately mailed the hours off. Miss Donna had said that she was ready to go take her test. She had been there a long time. I don't push them to go take their test. When they come to me and tell me they're ready to take their test, that's when I let them fill out the paperwork so they can go and take their test.
Okay. And while she was there, did she ever complain to you about not having the appropriate equipment, or that things were not sanitized or disposed of?
No, sir.
Is she paid in full?
She did pay in full. She paid by the month, but she did fulfill her contract. She was there over the allotted amount of time, but she did fulfill her contract.
All right. The next one that I have is a Keontae Doucette.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you would call about
Keontae came to school. I want to say I hadn't seen Keontae in 3 years. I don't know how she surfaced up, or why she surfaced up. To be honest with you, I know she owed me $3,600, and I was just like with Elton. I agreed to work with her for half of the amount of the price, and she called me a couple times to say that she was going to try and pay the money. I wanted her to get her license because I want to see them go out there and be successful, but she said that Donna had contacted her and told her that they were all coming to State Board and they wouldn't have to pay their balances. So
Did she complete her hours?
she had 1,510 hours.
Okay. And she still owes you money?
Yes, sir.
And she didn't satisfy her
No,
contractual
sir.
obligation?
No, sir.
Did she ever call you to ask you what she owed?
She did call me. She said she wanted to come in and practice for her practical, and which I don't have a problem with that. I still allow them to come in and practice with their practical even after they get their 1,500 hours. And she asked me how much I owed her. I texted her how much she owed her. She asked me to call her back. She's working at Walmart overnight or something like that, and she's had a baby since she was in school, so she didn't know which hours she could attend school to come and practice. After that, she didn't call me anymore. The next time I saw her was up here at the State Board office with a pack of complaints.
Now, she made a complaint about diluting the alcohol with water.
Yes, sir.
What's that about? If there
I
is-
hadn't seen her in so long, I couldn't even if she had diluted alcohol with water, I wouldn't even be able to remember because I hadn't seen her. But that's not my practice to dilute alcohol with water.
So if she did it on her own?
She did it on her own.
Okay. The next one is Michelle Guidry.
Yes, sir.
What do you remember about Miss Guidry?
Well, every day Michelle came to school, the next day her mama came in threatening to beat me up. She said, I'm gonna take you down, I'm gonna destroy your business, and I'm gonna help whoever I need to help to destroy you. She called it, Michelle was in school, I think about 2.5 years. Her mama came and asked me for, she wanted to file her taxes. I gave her my, with the IRS, the EIN number, because I didn't want to give her my social security number. I'm not federally funded. They don't get the student reimbursement. So the N number suffices the CPA. And I called all the other students, all the other accountants, that's what they use, my EIN from the IRS in order to file their taxes. So her mother came and asked me for that. And then she came back and asked me to give her a W-2 with saying Michelle had worked for me. I said, I can't do that. So she kept on threatening me and following me around. So what I did was I went to Home Depot and I bought a W-2 and I put N8 non-applicable on each one of them.
Okay.
And I gave it to her for the 2 years she asked me for.
Have you received payment in full?
Yes, she did. She had a contract. I worked the agreement out with her for pennies on the dollar to get rid of them.
Did she take the written test?
Yes, she did. She passed it.
So you gave them a break on the price?
Oh yeah, I pennies on the dollar to get rid of them. Yep, pennies on the dollar. Because the problem I had with her was She would always talk about how they go beat the police officers up, and she was born on Hopkins Street, how her car had gotten shot at the night before, and how her and her mama practiced voodoo at night. They got the voodoo dolls and how they beat the voodoo dolls.
Let me ask you something, we'll move on. Let's try to stay
Okay.
within the parameters of the question. Did she she took her test, did she pass? Do you
Yes,
know?
sir. She passed her written, but she didn't pass her, Mr. Landry, the test is set up where it's the written test, but a lot of times, the practical test is, hair cutting, their, roller set, the chemical combination, wet work, thank you, Ms. Warren. And they'll pass, a lot of times, they pass what they're strong in. So if there's one area on that test that they don't pass, they have to come back and take it again. So she has to come back and take her chemical combination and I think her haircut, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. She owed you $1,660, she paid $400.
$400.
And you told her that was fine?
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. The next one is Miss Vanette Hartman.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell me what's your recollection with regards to Miss Hartman's situation?
Well, Miss Hartman, she owes money. She only has, I think, if I can remember right, 750 hours. She called the board and asked for, she came to me. She said, you need to look at this paper. That was a list of her hours. And so I looked at it. She said, some of my hours are not on here. And she was correct. The first month that they come, you have to send in a supplemental report with the hours on it. And 1 month, I hadn't listed it, I don't think I had listed on there. And then at when she requested the report, there's some other months that's not listed on there, but they're on the, when I went back to look at the, it's in there, it's on the monthly hours report, her months. So she is correct, some of her hours are missing, it's almost, I think like close to 180 or something like that. Some of her hours don't reflect what it's supposed to reflect.
Did you have any kind of problem with her with regards to her high school degree?
Well, when she came to school, to register for school, we did all the paperwork. When she got home, she called me crying. She said, Ms. Nelda, I can't start. I said, why? She said, because I don't have a high school diploma. I said, but you were registered in school at Angelo's, which is a school in New Iberia that closed down some years ago. I said, you have to have had the completion of the 10th grade. You can be registered again because you were once registered. You're allowed 2 registrations. And so I knew that she could re-register. So what I did was I said, let me check on it for you. I said, I'm going to call, at the time, Chandler was working here. Tamika Self was gone by that time. So I called Miss Chandler and I said, Miss Chandler, I have a student who was registered at Angelo's. And I know there's a Wonderlic test that the students can take. So I figured, even if she don't have a high school diploma, she may have taken the Wonderlic test for admittance at Angelo's. And so Ms. Chandler called me back and she said she can register. So she registered into school, and that's it. I've only met, like she said in the last meeting, that me and Ms. was friends, the registration person. I've only met Ms. Chandler twice. I met her one time when I came here to deliver some information. The second time I met her, she wanted to get an instructor's license. She actually drove down to New Iberia to see the facility. And I've only seen Ms. Chandler Jones 2 times in my life.
Did Ms. Hartman, when she asked for her hours, did you provide her with her hours? The proof
I go over with her, but Ms. Vanette Hartman is a part-time student, So what she does, she works at the Cypress Bayou Casino. So she would come in, at first when she originally started, she'd come in the morning, but her schedule shifted. So she'd be there in the afternoon. So whenever she asked me for them, I let her know how many hours she had. She came in back for us to go over her hours. She wanted to know how many hours she had.
What is your policy with regards to somebody who doesn't pay you?
Well,
with regards to taking tests off the body information, things of that nature.
well, the students are not supposed to be able to register into another school in the state of Louisiana, and they're not supposed to be able to test until the school owner clear them.
Which
So-
means that you've been paying in full.
Yes, sir, that they satisfy their contract, financial contract.
Okay. So the reason she couldn't test, according to your testimony, she didn't have enough hours.
Exactly.
But she still not have enough hours.
I had, actually, when she said she wanted to test, I hadn't seen Vanette in over 8 months.
Okay. All right. You don't know if she attempted to register elsewhere?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, I don't think she can, Mr. Landry, because if she calls state board, I don't think they're gonna let her register, because she's still enrolled in the school.
And she still owes you money?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. What about Deanna Ortega?
Dina,
Dean?
she was in school 13 months. She's very talented. Very, very talented. She can look at a hairstyle, whether it be black, white, purple, blue, and green, and execute that on another client. She's very, very talented. She would have a very promising career. She's intelligent. She's smart. Dina fulfilled her contract, and she paid her deposit, and she paid 3 payments with her credit card. And she's really a good student. She would have had Dina didn't come to school full time more because she started. I think she started taking off on Saturdays. I thought she had told me it would be Tuesday, but she started taking off on Saturdays. So she would only get about I think about 25 hours at the most, and her time cards reflect that. But she was a good student.
Okay,
she
so
was a very good student.
does she owe you any money?
Dina does not owe me any money.
She doesn't owe you any money? She quit coming, so she
She
didn't-
stopped coming to prevent her from going into overage, but what happened was, like I said, we need good stylists out there. She's a good student, so I was willing to work with her. Her and her mama came by to pick up, her mother came by to pick up her kid. So when I walked them outside, Dina said that she had, she had used her, I think it was her, I'm not really positive, but it was some type of inheritance she had gotten through insurance. She had used that to come to school. So I said, well, Dina, I'll give you a scholarship. I said, why don't you, and I offered it to her even before I offered it to her twice. I offered it to her because I thought she'd be good for the school. I offered it to her one day about an instructor training program, but then I offered it to her when she said she could no longer afford to come. I said, Dina, why don't you, I'll give you a scholarship. Come back. She said, oh no, Miss Neal, I gotta think about it. Dina's such a good student. Even though what has happened, I would still let her come back. Because she's talented.
And she was going into overage because she didn't finish
That's what
timely, because she missed school.
Yes, sir.
And once she got into that overage category, she indicated to you that didn't have the
She said she didn't
necessary
have the funds.
funds to do it, and you offered her a scholarship.
Yes.
She still didn't come back.
No, she didn't come back. The next thing I heard from about Dina was that that she and Angela Bodine had gone to the sheriff department and filed a complaint on me, and they said that Mr. Steve told them that it was a very dangerous. She said that the school, Iberia Cosmetology Institute, was not a place that they needed to come to. They needed to not go back to the school.
Well, when you talk about Mr. Steve, who are you talking about?
Mr. Steve Young, the executive director for Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology.
You and Mr. Steve have had some run-ins in the past?
We've never crossed words. We talked twice at a seminar. The only dealings I've had indirectly with Mr. Steve was I think it was 2008, when Iberia Cosmetology Institute filed a lawsuit against Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology because my students' national test was being separated into a different pile from all the other schools. And so the students kept coming back and telling me something was wrong with the school. And I ignored it for about a year. But at the time, Mr. Steve Young was the assistant executive director. And so I've had some challenges getting my paperwork through. I've had some challenges getting the things done that I need to do. We have never physically had any type of across the words, but it has been very challenging for me to accomplish what I need to accomplish. I'm told that it happened on his watch. Even though he wasn't the executive director, he was the assistant director.
Tram Wynn. Tell me about Tram.
Tram Wynn, she's a nail tech student.
What happened with Tram?
Tram came to the school, and she didn't have a high school diploma, but I called the Wonderlic place. Well, actually, I called the state board place first, and they told me they told me actually somebody from the staff would ask. I think it might have even been Mr. Steve. What could we do? And they came back and told me give them the Wonderlic test. I ordered the Wonderlic test for Tram and another student named Bartley, and they passed the Wonderlic test. And when I sent it in, they said, and I kept communicating with the registrar office what was going on. She was taking a test. They told me that she could not enroll because the Wonderlic was not an acceptable proof of education. But then later I went on the website and it showed up that the Wonderlic is an acceptable proof of education to get the student enrolled in cosmetology school, although she's a nail tech student. But Tram Wynn, I feel guilty about that. Because Tram Wynn paid me $4,000 to come to school, and I knew that the Wonderlic was an acceptable form of education. Even though I couldn't get through the process to get this girl enrolled, I got tired of fighting.
Okay.
Can you spell Wonderlic for a quarter inch?
Yes, ma'am. Wonderlic. I'm sorry.
You knew that?
Okay. All right, now, so far, all these students we've talked about, did you appropriately keep accurate records of their attendance?
Yes, sir.
And the hours were listed appropriately?
Yes,
And
sir.
if they asked you for hours at the appropriate time, you would give them their hours?
Yes, sir.
All right. The same with Bari Patel?
Barty. Yes, sir.
What's that?
Barty Patel.
Barty
She's
Patel?
Indian.
Tell me what you remember about Miss...
Barty was an aesthetic student. And she did monthly payments. She satisfied her contract, and she was a really good student. She brought something actually to the school that the school didn't know. She does threading, which is something new to the aesthetics department, because most Americans don't know how to thread, and I don't know how to thread. So I enjoyed having her because it's something that's practiced in India, and. She came to the school, she satisfied her contract, she passed her test the first time. I had to do a lot of tutoring with her, even past her 750 hours, because she just wasn't confident. But I think the problem is a language barrier, because she's Indian. So I don't think that she felt confident enough that she can pass her test, which she could have, and she did.
What about Renata Prejo?
Renata was a nail tech student that I met. She had been going a long time. I don't know, maybe 2000 and what? I want to say like 2000. I'm not positive, but maybe 2010. Not a nail tech. I'm sorry. She was a cosmetology student, and Ms. Donna went. I had seen Renata in two, 3 years. Ms. Donna went recruited Renata, and. The day that I had to come here for the first part of the hearing, Ms. Renata came to me and said that she was sorry, but I didn't really know what she was talking about. She said, they said that you hadn't turned my hours in, but they were looking for my hours in nail tech, because I had said that I wanted to transfer to nail tech, but she never filled out any paperwork to transfer to nail tech. She just mentioned that. So she told the state board that she was registered in nail tech, but she wasn't in nail tech. Then she said she was sorry because they found her, I think it might have been 700 hours. They found them in the cosmetology, over here in the cosmetology area rather than the,
Did she complete school with you?
no sir, she ended up relocating.
All right. Now, all the students that I've mentioned to you, was there any time where you failed to maintain their records of attendance?
No sir,
Was there any time that you failed to maintain records of their progress?
no sir.
And you would appropriately hand that over to the appropriate authorities when it was necessary?
We have to send it in by the 10th.
Okay. Now, what about, so you properly registered each of their hours. I know occasionally you said that there may have been a little mistake, but you correct that?
Yes sir,
All right. And that would be the same, everybody who registered and everybody went there, you gave the hours they were entitled to and the hours that they actually
earned.
attend, that
Yes,
they
sir,
earned.
that they earned.
Okay, all right. And that would be the same for Angela Baudouin, Donna Bork, Keontae Doucette, Michelle Guidry, Annette Hartman, Tram Wynn, Deanna Artigo, Dina Artigo, Bari Patel, and Renata Frazier.
I did find some corrections, mistakes I made.
You did?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Did you report those?
No, actually, when we got the information from Ms. Sherry, I started going back and critiquing what I had done. So I have found in Vanette Hartman, I think it's 180 hours with, who else? Actually with Dina, I made a mistake and overcalculated her hours. With, who else? Dina, Vanette, I made a mistake on. But I think the other's okay, but I'm not 100% sure, but I
Okay.
did make some mistakes.
Now, and you corrected those mistakes.
I haven't turned the corrections in, I have them. I just noticed it since this started. So, but I need to turn it in, but I did make some mistakes.
But regardless of Ms. Hartman, she's still not have enough hours to take.
Oh, no, sir. No,
She
sir.
hasn't did that.
No,
Okay, Ms. Artigo,
no, she wouldn't have enough.
it wouldn't make any difference.
No, sir.
One way or the other.
No, sir.
Okay. Now, there's another allegation in here that you were charging fees to students in excess of what you had agreed upon. I believe we looked at one of your contracts, and it states that you put them out there to be charged.
Yes, sir.
And then there's an overage clause in there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that would be if they didn't finish it within the required period of time, you had so much an hour that you would charge after that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you found any occasions where you overcharged Angela Baudouin,
No, sir.
Donna Bork,
No, sir.
Ms. Doucette?
No, sir. She owes me.
She owes you, Ms. Guidry.
I worked out a plan, the $400, it was almost $2,000. No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hartman,
She still owes.
she still owes you money.
Her contract.
Ms. Wynn, Mr. Wynn, is it Miss or Mr. Wynn? Miss,
Tram.
Tram.
Wynn.
that's a guy or?
That is a girl.
Okay. Ms. Wynn, she owes you money or she?
No. Tram is the one who fulfilled her contract, but she couldn't get enrolled even though she had to pass the Wonderlic test.
Okay, all right. Dina Artigo,
Dina fulfilled her contract.
okay. Ms. Patel,
Dorothy, she fulfilled her contract.
okay, and Renata Frazier.
Bernardo fulfilled her contract.
Now, Mr. Frazier that testified this morning
Yes, sir.
indicated that he thought that he was being overcharged. You were present during his testimony,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Explain that to the board with your version of what occurred.
Well, Elton, when he came in, he signed his contract. I knew that he worked offshore, and he said, I'm trying to come in from offshore, and I'm gonna find a full-time job, which I didn't think anything of it. But then later on, when I went to him, I said, Elton, you know, your contract didn't expire, and you need to start paying on it. He said, I'm not paying you. I said, it's like a health club contract. I was trying to identify with it because he worked out. I said, it's just like a health club contract. When that contract expires, you have to renew that contract. So I just left him alone. I kind of stayed away from him because I had seen Elton and Vanette get into almost fighting with each other at times. And Elton always say, I'm a pray John. My uncle was the one who killed that state trooper, Dalton Pray John. So I just stayed away from him. I didn't want to have anything to do with that.
So he paid what he owed except for the overage?
Exactly.
All right. Did the board realize when he applied to take his test that he still owed you some money?
I didn't say, well, what I have to do is I have to send a blue form and say that they completed the contract. I didn't send any paperwork on Elton because the addendum contract that he and I had gotten together and talked because he was going to owe, I think, something like $4,000 or something. So I said, Elton, he said, the oil field is laying off. I said, would you feel comfortable with? He said, what's the least that you'd be willing to take? I said, take $3,000 off. What about the $1,000? So I gave him that contract, that addendum, and he left. So he was supposed to come back to Thursday, but he never showed up.
Now, this was money he owed for hours he had already received?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He was supposed to come back to Thursday, but he never showed up.
Well, how was he able to take the test, the exam?
He got cleared. He called state board, and they told, he said that they used the paperwork that he had previously had here when he had taken his written test. And state board cleared Mr. Prejean to take his test.
Did they call you to talk about Mr. Prejean's situation?
No, sir. I didn't even know that he had come to take his test until it came over the fax machine that he had not passed. Had he passed, I would have never known that he had a license.
All right. There's another one, which is number 15. It says, failing to refund fees for services not rendered or equipment not delivered in accordance with the agreements made with prospective students. To a Zolovic Carpenter?
That's close.
All right. Which Mr. Carpenter's
Mr. Carpenter? Mr. Carpenter, I have never ever met in my entire life. Mr. Carpenter called me on the telephone and told me that his wife, it was an aunt and a niece that had come by the school. He said, my wife came to the school to register for school, and I had talked to them on 3 or 4 other occasions, and we decided she's not gonna come to school. If you don't give me that money back, you're gonna be sorry, I'm gonna hurt you. He said, I've already called the board and talked to them. I said, you can call and talk to anybody you wanna talk to. You're not gonna threaten me like this.
He registered?
He wasn't even a student, he was calling about his wife. It's not even him, it was his wife.
Okay.
So he was on the witness list, probably because he made the phone call.
So you didn't know him anymore?
No,
What
sir.
about his wife?
His wife did come to register, her and her aunt came to register for the nail tech program. And they had come by about 4 times. I had conversations with them. They said they were gonna register. They finally came by. They had their check. When they came by to start school that day, I had put their kit together and I had their textbook. But they wear street clothes. They said they wanted to start that day. I said, but you don't have your uniform on. And I had told them several times, I had given them a tour of the school, and they knew that they had to have uniforms on. So they said, okay, we'll come back tomorrow. They left, and then they called me. I think the holidays were, I'm not positive, but I want to say Thanksgiving came up, Christmas came up, New Year's came up, and then the uncle came. And so they kept putting it off and off and off and off. But they had already paid me their deposit. So then they finally said, the niece said her husband wanted her to give the money back because he had lost his job offshore. And she was real scared. The auntie, she wanted the money back too. She's a retired teacher. But she wasn't pushy or rude about it. She just said that they had lost their lease and they decided that they didn't want to do it. They wanted to get the money back.
They had signed a contract with you and made a deposit.
They made a deposit. They didn't sign the contract.
Okay.
They made their deposit because they were in street clothes. So I said that You can't stay, they had sounders on.
Okay. And what about Jasmine?
Jasmine, oh, that's Jasmine, one's the niece and one's the auntie. Zolik is the aunt, Jasmine is the niece.
Okay. And the same?
It's the same.
Same, okay. Now it also says failing to timely certify or register students who completed the required hours of training for applicable course of testing.
Yes, sir.
Angela Baudouin, did she complete the hours for testing?
She did complete the hours for testing, and what happened was, Angela wanted to take her written first, even though she was very, very close to her 1,500 hours, which I knew she was gonna pass her written because she was a good student, written-wise. But she asked me, she said, Ms. Nelda, can I continue to practice because I don't think that I'm gonna pass my practical test, which I knew was the truth. I didn't have a problem with it, so Angela continued to come in and practice. One day I got a call from State Board and asked for her paperwork, and I sent it out the next day, I'm sorry, not door. The next day I went ahead and sent it out, but she hadn't come to me to say, I'm ready to take the test. I was still working with her she was ready for her written, but she was still coming to practice with her practical.
Okay, so you certified her with the board to take her test?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about Donna Board?
Donna had been there for 3 years. What happened was she and Angela came and took their test together. Miss Donna called me and told me that State Board had told her that she had her 1,500 hours a year earlier, which was not the truth. And so I called to find out what was going on, and they said it was just an error in communication. So when Miss Donna kept texting me, I said, Miss Donna, I have the text messages. It was just an error in communication. You misunderstood.
Okay. So she was.
I didn't register them. They say Mr. Steve helped them, and Mr. Steve registered them to take their test.
Keontae, was she certified? Did she have the requisite hours?
Keontae has her hours. Keontae hasn't fulfilled her contract, but she does have 1,000, I think 1,500 hours, 1,515 hours.
Okay.
That's what she has.
But she owes you money.
Yes, sir.
So you don't certify if they don't pay their contract.
No, sir.
Okay. Vanette does not have.
The sufficient amount of hours.
She doesn't have. So you couldn't certify her.
No, sir.
She did not complete the required hours.
No, sir.
Dina Ortega, did she complete the required hours?
No, sir.
Tram Wynn.
No. But Tram has almost all her hours, but the problem was with the Wonderlic test with Tram.
I understand. So you can't certify
No,
because
sir.
she has the
No, sir.
appropriate testing. Ms. Patel,
But she passed her test, she has her license, and she completed her contract.
all right, you registered her, you know.
That's how she took her test.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
appropriately. Renata Frazier.
She doesn't have the sufficient hours to test.
Okay, so you couldn't certify her.
No, sir.
She didn't have the required hours to test. Okay. Now, what I would like to show you, are these photographs that you took?
Yes, that's pictures of the apparatus, the equipment, and the tools to satisfy the allegations that I didn't have the proper tools. And there's some more.
Let me show them to you. You took these photographs?
From the school? Mhm.
These photographs of your?
Yes, sir.
Your school?
Yes, sir. Internal.
Well, I want you to, this is,
Yeah, that's the clinic floor. The clinic floor. The shampoo, I'm sorry, the manicure.
what is this?
That's the theory classroom. It states that they have to have an anatomy chart. That's the anatomy charts they say I don't have in the desk.
This is,
That's the pedicure room. That's the manicure tables that you were asking about. Did I have sufficient number of, that's the more anatomy charts.
And these have been there.
That's the library, since I brought them to school from Louisiana. They require that we have a student library, that's the library.
Okay.
And this is a procedure, so that when they go in to do a pedicure, sometimes they get stuck or they get scared. That's the procedure, that they get scared, and that's the DVD, the TV showing them how to do it. That's the mannequin heads that we have to have, the perm rods, more perm rods, the lockers, sufficient number of lockers, we have tons of lockers. That's the rollers, they say we run out of rollers, the next one you just flip through,
Okay.
tons of rollers. Gotta go back, we keep passing. That's the entrance.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to offer fun to introduce these photographs together as D7, right, Sheriff?
I don't have any objections, you can identify the date that they were taken.
I can get the original picture, it has the date on it.
Did you take them this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they were taken after January 1st of 2015.
Yes, oh, yes, sir. I took them when I got the allegation.
Okay.
Ms. Morris, is that enough for you?
Yes, they were taken after the complaint was filed.
Okay. So what was the number of those?
7.
Okay.
These 7. Okay. So, you had another inspection, I think, February 15th, you told me, or February 2015, and the only complaint that was lodged against you was the fact that you did not have 2 instructors,
Yes, sir.
and you do have the 2 instructors now.
Yes, sir.
Give me a minute. Do you have any reason, or do you have any idea why these complaints have come about in the recent past?
Yes, sir. Whenever I gave them the overage, they said they didn't want to pay it.
So most of it has to do with overage
Yes,
and
sir.
money.
Money.
They either owe you money or
Yes,
they
sir.
refuse to pay you money.
Yes, sir. I've never had a cross word with not one of those students. Never. None of them.
All right, that's all the questions I have for this witness at this time.
Ms. Morris, you want a break?
Take a break for just a few minutes.
I know you might need it. Yeah. Okay.
We'll, the board, we'll have a little break, so, 6-7 minutes.
Ms. Nellie, you can move around if you want, or you can just sit there, but you can't talk.
About Tram Win. Tram Win was an LTEC student.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Did you ever register Tram Win with the board?
I sent in her application to get her registered, and I got a letter saying, when I told, I talked to Kiwan, that I was trying to keep Tram registered. She told me, go ahead and do the one-to-the test, keep her updated. When Tram passed the one-to-the test, I got the letter in. The first letters, I can't remember exactly what it said at the bottom, but it was, the date was the 7th of, not really sure, but it's in the folder. And it said that she needed, she didn't have the proper education, and that she needed to provide the proper education. So I got her to pass the one-to-the test. Then when I send in the one-to-the test, it said that this is not a form of acceptable education, and this student should not have been enrolled in school.
Do you have a copy of the application you sent in for Tram Win?
Yes, ma'am. I can get it on the date for you. Okay.
too.
Yes. And it had one before that, I showed you the one before that. It was both dated at 7. There's another part too. Look, it's right here. It's the same date. Go back. Yes, that's it. It said, okay. And that's it too. It was the same date, but the information was added at the bottom. Yes. Let me share it.
Do you remember when Tramway started school?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, if this letter from the board is dated September 17, 2013, when did how much before this did Tram?
About 60 days.
So you sent it in within 60 days.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you complete on her application as education?
Her one-year test. The results of her one-year test.
Okay, so you don't have a copy of the application?
I can look for it.
She might have.
Okay, I can. So I have a note on there that says I called the one that the senator, they said that they had gone through some senator, and the senator said that they had gone through the legislature and it had to be accepted. That's just our contract.
Oh.
I'll keep that in there. That's the one that they said.
No, this is not an application.
That's, oh, let me go through it then, I'm sorry.
What is
No,
that?
this is from.
Her contract, I'm
Oh.
sorry, we'll find it. We'll find it.
Can I hang on to this or something?
Look, I had her name on here when I was trying to get it registered.
That was to try to get her registered with the board.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Terrell, this application, for Tram Knockland, did you fill out the top part of this application or did she?
No, this one here right there. That's training. Okay, right.
She filled this out. And what did she indicate her level of education was?
A GED.
Okay, did you get from her a GED certificate?
What she had was, she had filled that out, But when she gave the paper to me, it was some type of equivalence to a high school diploma. So she called it a GED, but it's some type of high school equivalence, but it's not accepted. It was when they first started going through this thing called the skills test or something like that. And this was my first time seeing it. I had never seen anything like that from a high school. This was like 3 or 4 years. They don't just get the regular diploma or something like that. I was terrified afterwards. It's something that they get now called, yes, and I had already, when she said that, I had already accepted it and did what I enrolled her, and then when I saw that, I called to find out if that was acceptable, and they told me no, she needed to go get a GED or take the Wonderlic test. That was my choices. So I called the Wonderlic place because I remember the Wonderlic from some other people who had come in, and I think they might have charged $800. I paid to have her, and I had to get a what they call it, the person who come and test them. I forgot what the name was.
Independent tester.
Yeah, and I had to hire somebody to come and do that test, proctor, I think they call it. And the proctor came out and tested her, and I had to do what I had to do to try and get the girl in school because I feel bad.
Okay, this application that was completed by you and Ms. Nguyen indicates that it was to start school July 18, 2013. Do you agree with that?
That's the date I had this.
Okay. And then you have the correspondence that you received from the board is September 17, 2013.
9/17/13.
This application from the board indicates it was received by the board on September 16, 2013.
But I have been communicating since December with them. Okay, that's the 16th. But I had sent it before and got back to me. No, it didn't.
Okay, so she can send it in 60 days after the student
Okay.
started class,
Okay.
correct? And then you got a letter saying that she didn't have the right education.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then are these the hours for tramway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and it indicates that even though you got a letter in September, she earned 140 hours in October
Yes, ma'am.
and 129 in November,
Yes, ma'am. Because they told me she can take the Wonderlic test.
but you didn't know if she had passed the Wonderlic test or if you didn't know the outcome.
Oh, that's true, Mr. Chair, but I didn't think about that. I just felt bad.
Okay, and then the contract that you had with Tramway indicates that this is a nail tech student.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
That the tuition was $4,975.
Yes, ma'am.
Did she pay you that money?
I gave her a $1,000 scholarship, and she paid me the money. She had already paid. What I did was, if they paid it all up front, I give them a $1,000 scholarship.
But it says the balance was $4,000, but she paid
She
you
paid it,
$4,000.
she paid it, yes, ma'am.
She completed the entire course.
Yes,
She
ma'am.
wasn't qualified to be in your school, is that correct?
She was qualified because I have had to take the Wonderlic test.
But it says on her application that she has a GED and she did not have a GED. You allowed her to complete the entire class. She has not been registered with the board and she has not taken an exam to get licensed, is that correct?
She has not been registered, but she had what equivalence from some type of skills thing from the high school. So I was told by state board to give her the Wonderlic test. When I called, that's what they told me, to give her the Wonderlic test.
Okay, so this student has paid the entire tuition, completed the entire course, and cannot sit for the license exam, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And you have not refunded the $4,000?
No, I have not.
Okay. I'd like to offer and introduce this as board exhibit, I think, 17. Please raise your hand.
The last one was 16.
Ms. Butler can make some copies, so we can get
Okay.
those back to Mr. Rowe.
It's about.
Do you have any objections to admission? So, exhibit 17 will be.
with respect to the rule or the state law that requires at least 2 instructors of minimum to be employed by school, which was enacted in 2010, you said in your testimony that you called the registrar's office. Who is the registrar?
Is in Baton Rouge, is located here in Baton Rouge. Their office that facilitate the different professions with the occupational type. We use the occupational 48.
Did you call this board office?
No,
Is
ma'am.
That's not anybody in this
No,
board
ma'am,
office?
that's not.
Okay, so if you needed to know the requirements of how many instructors you needed, did you contact this office to find out that information?
I had gotten a letter from this office saying what I needed to have, and I kept going back, reading a book, reading a book, reading a book, reading a book. And I have a couple friends who are attorneys, and they have the occupational, is a thick book with all the requirements for the occupational standards. And they read it, they say, Nelda, I don't think, according to what I'm reading, I don't think that you have to hire one. But I said, the back of the book has something. And they said, well, let me look into it. And they told me to call the registrar office, and that's how I found out.
My question to you, Mr. Ellis, did you contact the Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology to determine how many was the minimum number of instructions you could have to operate a school?
No, I didn't call state board.
Okay. Are you aware of the requirement that every school have within it located a copy of the rules promulgated by the Cosmetology Board and the laws adopted by the state legislature relative to cosmetology?
The Gold Book, yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have copies of that in your school?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you distribute copies of that to your students?
I have a library with it, and I have it on the wall with their names.
Okay, and are your students tested on that material when they come to the state board?
Yes, they are.
Okay, but you just totally disregarded the language that says you need a minimum of 2 instructors.
No, I read that it said that I needed, I was familiar with that. I needed 1 instructor per 20 students. That's what I understood it to read. That's why I asked for help.
But if it says you must employ at least 2 instructors, you didn't have to follow that part.
I didn't understand it.
You didn't understand 2 instructors?
No, ma'am. I didn't understand the word.
Okay, Louisiana Revised Statute, Title 37, Section 595, Paragraph A, Subparagraph 4, says employ at least 2 instructors. This is listed under requirements of schools, but you don't understand what it means to employ at least 2 instructors.
I didn't understand it because I felt like the beginning of the book said 1 instructor. The second half of the book said 2 instructors. So there was a conflict going on. Why was there 2 different divisions? One side said 1 instructor, the other part of the book said 2 instructors.
Did you look at the date of the 2 provisions you were looking at?
No, ma'am.
Okay, did you contact the Cosmetology Board for clarification?
Who would I contact for that? Who's delegated to give me that information? Who? So there's somebody to delegate. If you run into an era where they're telling you to get 2 instructors, this is who you call?
Mr. Rao actually just chose to ignore that provision. Isn't that correct?
No, ma'am. I did in the past have a part-time person who come in and help me, but she's not there full-time. Even at that time, Karen got. So I have had another teacher to come in at part-time.
Okay, so you don't dispute the fact that since 2010, you have operated a school with 1 instructor.
I have never been written up or told or send a paper saying that I needed to have 2 instructors. I have never gotten any type of memo from Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology since I opened saying that I needed a 2nd instructor until Ms. Sherry Stockstill showed up. If I had known I was not in compliance, I would have tried to accommodate it. This came as a whirlwind to me all of a sudden, saying that I needed an instructor. It took me by surprise, and I couldn't understand why I needed 2 instructors.
Okay. But in order for your students to pass the state cosmetology test, you don't review these requirements with them?
Yes, I do, but I do know there's a new school in New Orleans, which just got approved last month, and they were approved by the board to have one instructor. Why do I have to have two instructors when the school in New Orleans has one instructor? They were just approved the last time I came to the board, January, February, March, at the hearing before I came. What's the difference? Why she was allowed to have one instructor when Nelda has to have two instructors? What's really going on in here? I just don't understand. It seems like I just can't get no cooperation.
Ms. Durrell, you have admitted today that a number of your students have finished the course, but you have not scheduled them for testing. Is that correct?
That is not correct. No, I scheduled. I know there was a complication with Dorothy. She got scheduled. I had a hard time getting Dorothy scheduled. I had a hard time getting Michelle scheduled. What happened with Michelle Guidry was they called to ask me why Michelle Guidry wasn't scheduled, and Miss Johnson was leaving to go on vacation. She called me. She said, Nelda, I'm looking for Michelle information. I said, Miss Johnson, I mailed that information off. She said, and I believe you too. The next day, Michelle paper came in the mail to the school saying I did not supply a photograph of her. So I called them. I said I supplied a photograph of her when she took her written test. They said just for the future, when they apply to take their test, send a photograph in twice. So that's why it was being sent back to me. I called Mr. Steve. I said, Mr. Steve, how about this? Y'all just called me and said that Michelle didn't register. I didn't register Michelle, and y'all didn't have her paperwork, but it's in the mailbox right now. He said, send it back. Ram.
Okay, Ms. Durrell, of the students that we've discussed today, the ones who have been tested are not because you sent in their registrations, is that correct?
Such in whom? Which student are you referring to, Ms. Morris?
How about Mr. Prejean?
Mr. Prejean went behind my back. He didn't fulfill his contract, and he got Louisiana State Board of Cosmetology to register him. He said Mr. Steve registered him, and then he said, and upon registering, he talked to two females. Then they went and got Mr. Steve, and Mr. Steve told him that if you don't pass this first shot with the practical, then you got to go back and get Miss Nelda to clear you. We're just clearing you this time. He specifically said that.
Ms. Durrell, it seems like you have disagreements with a lot of your students. You only have, you said 6 students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how many of those do you have disagreements with?
I don't have a disagreement with any of them. We've never had a cross of words. Never. Never.
About your time clock. I know you were here when a number of the students testified that your time clock doesn't work or isn't the correct time. What explanation do you have?
It does work. What happens is the students don't understand military time. It goes 9, 10, 11, 12, and when it gets to 1, they don't understand military time, and it has a P on it. So they think that means PM.
So according to the time clock that you have, could your students calculate their hours?
When they clock in, if it says 9, on the right-hand side, it's going to say in. But when they go out to lunch, it's going to say, like if they clock in 9, 10, 11, 12, it's going to say 3.0. And then when they clock back in, it's going to say in again. And at the end of the day, it's going to have a little square on side of it that says, if it's 1 o'clock, they come at 2, 3, 4. It's going to say 3.0 again. And then that's how they can add up it calculates it for them.
This time clock has been working the entire time that you've had school?
Yes, ma'am.
It's the same time clock you started?
No, ma'am, not the same time clock. I got this time clock from Miss Anna Peck. It's an up-to-date time clock. When she closed her school and she was selling some of her equipment, I went and purchased the same time clock that Miss Anna Peck was using. She's a previous school owner on Johnson Street, but she died.
Where do you maintain your student records office?
It's in the administrative office in the front office.
Do you have a box of records that you keep in your car?
I take all my records home and do my paperwork. I take what I don't get to do at the school, I haul them around and take them home and do them.
You do that daily?
I always take something home to it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My car stayed full of paper and paperwork.
Did you ever issue a refund to the two individuals that came for the nail tech class?
Jasmine and
Jasmine and
Zolik. No, as Ms. Zolik said, the older lady, the retired school teacher, she said she didn't say that she wasn't gonna give it to us. She said that she was willing to work with us. And that was her statement at the last meeting.
Have you worked with them? Have you refunded any portion?
I have not seen those ladies since the last time we came to the meeting, and I was afraid to contact them because I didn't want anybody to say that I talked to them and I shouldn't have been talking to them, trying to communicate with them. I didn't know what the rules was. I didn't know that I can even call them.
Are you going to refund that money?
They said that they would possibly come back to school later in life. One of them said that her husband lost his job, and the other one said that they lost the lease on the building that they were gonna get.
Ms. Bork testified when she was here that she was in the cosmetology program and then she thought she could get out faster if she switched to manicuring, and she told you she wanted to switch to manicuring.
Yes, ma'am. That's what she said. She didn't tell me that. She said that in her testimony here. When I talked to Miss Donna at the school, she said she was thinking about switching to manicure. We never, she was still, as a matter of fact, she was still in cosmetology. How could she switch to manicure? And that's what I thought about. She hadn't even finished the curriculum she was in.
Right. At that time, did you take her textbook from her?
No, ma'am. We were in class one day and I was doing some theory and we was talking about something and I said, let me show you. I said, let me show you what's in the textbook. And the first time I heard about her needing her textbook was I got a email, Mr. Landry's secretary, Miss Kathy. She called me to say that they had gotten an email from you saying that Miss Donna needed her textbook back. That was the first time I heard of her wanting her textbook back. Miss Kathy asked me to look around the school to see if I had it. I said, I wouldn't even know where to look for the book. That's been so long ago, the day that she asked me to show her something. We was talking about something in the classroom, but it's not like I took her textbook. Another student was right there and we was talking about something in the textbook. I said, give me your textbook, let me show them. But I don't have Miss Donna's textbook.
Did you take any money from Ms. Bork to transfer her to the nail tech program?
No, ma'am. Miss Donna used to pay me with a credit card. She can start researching her credit cards and her check to see that she never gave me $2,900. I'm wondering how did she come up with the figure of $2,900? Because the nail tech program is not $2,900. When I first started, it was I think it was $4,995, and now it's up to $6,975. So I'm wondering where she got the figure $2,900 from.
But you didn't take any additional money from Ms. Bork?
She fulfilled her first contract. She didn't owe me no money. I never got no $2,900 from Ms. Barr.
Were there, other than Tram Wynn, were there any other students who attended your school and weren't registered with the board?
No, ma'am.
None.
That weren't registered? Nobody I can think of the top of my head. Tram. I ended up getting Dorothy registered because she had her PhD. It was Tram on that Dorothy. I have a list. If I can get that list to see who else I was trying to get registered. None that I, Michelle Posey. I don't know if she was or not. I'm not really sure. But she didn't say on it.
So that's the question.
Yeah, it was in question.
question
Board
is,
did not.
were there any other students who attended your school who were not enrolled with the board?
Not that I know of.
Are there any other students that you took money from that were not enrolled with the board?
Not that I know of.
None.
Not that I know of.
Well, how would there be a student in your school that you didn't know of when you're the only instructor?
Like I said, not off the top of my head, nobody that I know of that I didn't get registered.
So your testimony is that every student that you have ever had in your school attending classes or accepted money from is enrolled with the board, except Tramway.
That's all I know of. That's the only information that I can give you, because that's all I know of, Ms.
All right,
Morris.
well, who other than you registers students with the board?
Me, just me.
Okay, so how is it that you wouldn't know of anyone that's not registered?
Maybe I slipped it, or the person wasn't there that long, but, the only other student I have that started last month was, but she's registered, I forgot her name, Jane, not Jane, but I got her registered, and I'm having a complication right now getting like Miss Katrina said, I had to send off her paperwork back and forward. Her paperwork is here, waiting for them to send that back to me. So she's in school, but they haven't sent me her license yet. It's still here. That's been 3 weeks I've been waiting on her license. But I sent it back certified. So other than that, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
Okay, so the only person that you might have, that you have, that's not registered with the board, that you took money from and attended classes is somebody that recently started.
That's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, so every student that attended classes in 2013 was registered with the board.
2013,
Yes.
and it's 2015? Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, 2013.
Well, you're saying that everybody that attended school and you took tuition payments from was registered. What would be a situation where they wouldn't be registered and you took money from them and they attended school?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so every student that came to your school, attended classes, paid tuition in the year 2013 should be registered in this board office.
I don't know who you're referring to, and I don't know the conditions that you're talking about.
Well, I'm asking you, Mr. Rowell, what situation would it be that you wouldn't register a student? Other than what we
I don't
discussed
know.
with
I know of
Tramway.
any.
You don't have
The
any other
situation.
students in a similar situation to Tramway?
None that I know of.
Well, you just said you were a small school, it was very hands-on, you're the only instructor, you're the only registrar. So who would know?
Like I said, not that I know of. You can't make me produce information that I don't know, Ms. Morris.
Okay, you previously talked about the mistakes in the records, and you said that maybe Ms. Hartman has another 180 hours. How would it be that if you have this time clock that's calculating the hours, that you could be off by 180 hours?
The first, I have is 100, first you have to send in a supplemental report. And when you send that supplemental report, that's the first set of hours that she gets. And then her hours on her, is on the thing that I sent to the board. But when Vanette Hartman came to me with the printout of her hours, what I sent to the board, and it's on the roster of the hours that I sent to her, is not on the printout sheet that she gave to me. She came to me, she said, Ms. Nelda, is this my registration date? I said, no, that's not your registration. I showed her what her registration date, because she had it confused. Then she showed me another, some more information on the top of that sheet. It was my social security number that they had sent out to the students. Vanette Hartman has my social security number on her cell phone, on that piece of paper.
Okay, I asked you how is it that you miscalculated by
Vanette
180
Hartman, that's how I found out
hours?
about the
You're telling
miscalculation.
about all sorts
I'm
of
talking
different
about,
things.
I'm talking about Ms. Vanette Hartman and the calculations. when I would not have known that Manette hours were not recorded by the board. The board didn't record those hours before they gave Manette that printout, because it's the information that you sent me, Ms. Morris, the hours are on it. The information that you sent for the report, Manette hours are on it, but it's not on the printout that they sent to Vanette's house that the board sent. So
Well, where were Vanette's hours posted at your school?
in the same office, the administration office.
And Ms. Hartman had access to that?
I go over it with them every month, then I post it in the office.
So there was a discrepancy of 180 hours that nobody discovered until after this proceeding began.
No, the beginning of it, but Ms. Vanette came to bring to my attention about the hours. So it was discovered.
Okay, and as of this day, you haven't corrected that or made any attempt to correct that with the board?
I had to record it. I didn't. Mr. Landry told me that everything that I send, to make sure I let him know what I'm sending to the board. So I hadn't sent it to him, so I haven't sent it to y'all.
Is there a possibility that there could be similar miscalculations with all these other students that filed complaints?
Earlier I said that there was a miscalculation with Dina's hours and Ms. Vanette Hartman's. Yes, ma'am. Dina Artego.
Okay, so you filed inaccurate reports of student hours with this board.
Not intentionally. I made a mistake.
Intentionally or unintentionally, you filed inaccurate reports with this board.
Not intentionally. That's been called human error.
Do you have any other employees at your school?
Yes, ma'am.
Who are they?
Amanda Duffy.
Other than Ms. Duffy, who started working there recently, from 2012 until Ms. Duffy started?
Yes.
Were there any other employees?
Yes, ma'am. I've had receptionists at different times, and I had a substitute that would come in and help me occasionally, Miss Karen Gallagher. And I have somebody who come and mop the floor. There are other people in there with me.
But as far as registration, payments, sending reports to the board, teaching classes, you're responsible for all those duties?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you enroll students starting on a specific day, for instance, like just class starts September 1st every year, or you just let them come in any time?
We have open enrollment. It's usually every other month.
Explain what open enrollment is.
Well, it's open enrollment is open enrollment. I enroll every other month for the students. It's usually, I try to do every other month. Sometimes if I don't have any students that month, I might miss a month and enroll them the next month.
And do they start on the first Tuesday of the month or some, what do you mean every other month?
It's always a Tuesday that they start. It starts on a Tuesday. But my choice is to enroll every other month so that I'll have a bunch of paperwork to do, and I can dedicate my students to the time to make sure they get their theory work in. So I try to enroll every other month.
Okay, so if you have 6 students now, you
Mhm.
said, do they all start at the same time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, how long has the student that's been there the longest been in your school?
The longest student. Shayna Proctor, Jamie, Shayna Proctor. She's been there, what, about 7 months?
Okay, so all the students in your school currently have been there 7 months or less?
No, yes, ma'am. Shayna Proctor would be the oldest student.
Are they all in the same programs?
No, ma'am.
How many different programs are these 6 students in?
We have, Cosmo and, Vanilla K.
Okay, but do you have separate instructors for this program?
No, now I do, but no, ma'am, before I did.
When you have open enrollment, you mean that you can take in students every other month and they can be in any program?
No, ma'am. What happens is, if they come in cosmetology, the book is set up where the chapters rotate. If they come in on hair services, that's what they in and enroll in. If they come in on the sciences, they in on the sciences. It's a solid, established curriculum, and we don't throw the student in any chapter. If they come in, if the sciences have about 5 chapters, if they come in anatomy, they start in anatomy, but it continues to recycle. They may get the chapter 3 or 4 times before they graduate. So it continues to recycle. They don't just get thrown in anywhere, and they complete that division because it recycles.
Okay, so at your school, do you have specific times for lectures?
Yes, ma'am. We have Tuesdays and Wednesdays is set aside for theory. So we don't do any clients on Tuesday mornings until like lunchtime, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That way they get a good solid theory. And Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and if sometimes we have a slow Thursday, and we'll go and do more theory in the theory room, or what I'll do is I'll take practical and turn it into a theory, and make it the practical a theory class so that they can understand not only to apply it on the mannequin head, but to apply it with the theory.
That you go over the student hours with the students each month, is that part of a class or is that other time?
I try to do it in the classroom when I can catch them one-on-one. Like some go on their break and I'll say, come on, let's go over your hours, and I'll show them their hours.
And is that on the time clock? Is that considered instructional time?
Is it considered instruction time? Well, if they on break, they going on break. It's their break time. I go over their hours with them. Because we get, what they get, 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch break.
Okay, so what time does your school open?
9 o'clock.
They get 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch break.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the students indicated that school didn't always start on time. That they waited in the parking lot, and that customers were sometimes waiting in the parking lot. Is that accurate?
I have been late occasionally, Ms. Lawrence.
What do you consider occasions?
Every now and then, if there's an accident, if the weather's bad, maybe, what? I don't have an exact number, maybe what? 3 times a month.
How many of the students what percentage of your students are part-time and what percentage are full-time?
How much is it?
Today?
Right, okay. I have 3 full-times and Cosmo. I think about 4 full-times and 2 part-times.
Okay, and you're the same instructor for the full-time class and for the part-time class?
Yes, ma'am. As of right now, Miss Amanda is the second instructor, but previously I was the instructor to everyone.
Okay, so when the individuals listed in the complaint were enrolled, you were the only instructor for the
Yes,
full-time
ma'am.
course, for the part-time course, for the nail tech course, the aesthetics course, and the cosmetology course.
Other than Miss Karen, who I would have come and help me, who is registered with the Board of Cosmetology.
Okay, but you covered all of those areas.
We didn't have students enrolled in all those curriculums, but if somebody had to teach it, it was me. Yes.
But you testified that Dorothy was in aesthetics.
Aesthetics at one time.
Tram Wynn was in manicure.
Right.
And most of the rest were in cosmetology.
Mhm.
Mr. Frazion said he was part-time.
Mhm.
Others were full-time. So you did have all those courses at one time.
We had Barton in aesthetics, we had Elton in Cosmo. Who did we have in aesthetics? We had Barton in aesthetics, cosmetology, and nail tech. Who did we have in a nail tech at that time?
Tram Wynn, you said was in
I don't know the time frame you're talking about. But she's a nail tech.
I don't have any further questions.
Board members, do you want any questions?
I did. Do you have a refund policy?
Yes, ma'am. On the,
Can I see a copy?
on the,
Can I
yeah, you wanna see a contract? That's what you wanna see?
Well, your refund policy. Do you have a refund policy with your school?
The students normally pay as they go. They receive their hours. Occasionally, I'll get somebody who may pay the whole thing. But it says on the contract that the deposit is non-refundable. And on their receipts that I give them, I write for the deposit non-refundable. But other than that, I don't receive any federal funding and I don't receive any type of grants. So I'm not required like NACAS and Council on Careers to have a refund policy to return to those students when we receive federal funds. I don't receive any federal funds. They pay as they go.
So you don't have a refund policy?
They pay as they go. They'll occasionally, no, I don't have, no.
Whenever you talk about the length of time they're in school,
Yes, ma'am.
it's like you put a date for the end of the contract, is what I've been hearing. How do you calculate their time in school?
The date on the contract is like cosmetology is 12 months. So the time that they enroll until the expected graduation date is the time that ends the contract, your expected graduation date.
Do you allow students to take leaves?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when they take a leave, you extend the contract without charging, right? Or do you change the contract at that time? If someone takes a 1 month leave, do you change the contract to show that it's a month later?
I keep the same contract when I do the addendum to it, to say that you owe more money according to what's specified at the end of the contract.
So you're charging those students when they're on leave.
Do I charge the students when they're on leave?
Does your addendum change the end date? When that student's supposed to finish? If they're taking a month off, there's no way they're gonna finish at the same time that they originally started. So when they take a month leave, are you changing their end date to a month later?
I don't think I've had that occur, that anybody had to take a leave. So this is really new to me. I haven't had anybody who I had one student who just started, who's on a month leave right now. But you're actually educating me. I don't know what to do. But I haven't had anybody who took a leave and I had to adjust their money. My students are not that they take a leave because of my location. My students are mostly challenging students, disadvantaged students who are just not consistent in attending what their attendance is for. But I don't have students that usually take long periods of leave.
How many students have you had that actually finished and got licensed?
Most of my students get a license. I've had a very good pass rate. up until last year, when I continued to have challenges with the students, the Asian students, because of the language barrier, and they started taking the Vietnamese test. But I have not, in aesthetics, every student that has come to take the aesthetics test has passed. I have a very high, you can go back and look at the written, I have a very high pass rate for the written. Lately, they've had a couple challenges on their haircuts, and other than the fact that we have the challenge with the barrier with the Asian students, I think is a barrier with them passing the test and comprehending the test. But they were given a choice to take the test 3 times, and if they didn't pass it, they could take it in Vietnamese. So hopefully that'll help.
I think, I'm remembering correctly, that there were some students that testified that, or at least one, that testified they had never done a haircut on the floor, on the clinic floor.
We don't get we hardly get any haircut, but they do. The haircutting curriculum is when they come in order to come to state board, their mannequin head has to be cut. They have a one length cut. They do a diagonal forward, diagonal back, and to cut those points off, they do a 1 length haircut. Every student gets that the beginning of the haircutting curriculum. Then they start practicing after that. That mannequin hair is at the perfect length to start cutting their uniform cut. They might not do, Michelle, they don't do a lot of haircuts at my school. And I'm just being honest, we don't have a clientele that has a lot of haircuts. We have a lot of older women, retired school teachers, principals, doctors, and lawyers. And mostly they come from is a relaxer, a rinse, and a roller set. You know, occasionally they'll say, "Well, trim my ends," but we don't get a lot of haircuts. We really don't. So it's just not there.
I have a question. Do you have a policy? First of all, I think you said that you have one student that's been there for 3 years, or somewhere about there. Or was. So do you have a policy that says if a student is out X amount of days, they must be dropped?
The requirement for attendance is 80% attendance, or the next month they have to pull up their attendance.
But for 3 years, she's bound to have been below her required attendance.
Okay, occasionally she was, but we have this thing where her mama had come in the beginning and she kept saying that we told you that she would not be there from time to time, and making just a huge issue out of it. And I really felt threatened by this individual. It's not that I didn't want to get rid of her at times, but I just wanted to, I've always been told, just get her in and get her out.
How did you come up with your figure for your overage charges?
Well, every curriculum is different depending, like right now cosmetology is $9,975. I divide it by the, after you take off the kit fee, you divide it by the amount of hours, and that's going to give it to you for that particular curriculum. Nail tech is, I think, I'm not sure, but I think it's $6,975. You divide it by the units of study. And for aesthetics, we hadn't had an aesthetic student in a little bit. I'm not sure of the price, but I divide it by the hours that they're going to be there. They pay X amount of dollars per hour.
I thought the cosmetology student, or someone had said it was $8 an hour.
It depends on how much Cosmo is. Some students, like Mr. Prejean, he enrolled when it was only $6,975. So
Right.
It depends on how
Which
much
was
it is.
$4.25 an hour, but I thought he testified that he was charged. Was there testimony that it was $8 an hour, or
It's in the exhibit.
am I not correct?
I could have possibly made a mistake and put 8 on his and 6. I don't know. I could figure, but his balance was almost $5,000. I dropped it to $1,000, so he wouldn't even be paying $8 an hour. in his overage, because he hasn't paid anything yet on his overage.
If you look at his contract, that's where you had gotten.
What was his name?
Mr. Elton Frazier.
Elton
It's
Frazier.
Board Exhibit 14.
Yeah, you mentioned it in the contract earlier, I think it already came out there.
So $1,000, I think I broke it, it was gonna be $5,000 according to the time that he was there. So he'd only be paying fraction of that, $1,000 was the agreement I gave him.
So you'd be really over to.
Yeah,
But initially, here's 292 times 8, 292 times 5.
it was two estimates. That's what it should have been, and then the other, I gave him two.
But if you started in the tuition with $6,795, you still have to charge the overtime. If your calculations, if that's how you're doing it, you would still charge the overtime at the cost that it started, correct? Or you're just changing it as you go?
Oh, no, it's what, according to his original contract.
But this shows $8 an hour, and his original contract was $4.25 an hour.
No, when he was saying that, I showed Mr. Edward that I'm not 100% positive, but the contract I have, I said, that's not correct, what he has. I'm not really sure, but I can check it and see. I don't know if that contract is the contract that I gave him. I can look and see though.
This is the enrollment agreement.
That's what, that's not the one Elton had. Okay, no.
It's not?
It's Board Exhibit 14, I think.
Right, that's what I have. And
Okay.
it shows his tuition is $6,075.
Okay, that's it.
Right. So, I don't see where you get $8 or even $5, really, if you take that and divide it by 1,500.
I could have possibly miscalculated.
Does that look right here where it says hours per week, does that look like it's 60? It does? Okay. And you can't get 60 hours a week.
No, that was, should have been 30 hours a week. That they can earn up to 30 hours a week.
Were you doing it for his 2 weeks in? Is that why you?
I don't know, but they normally get 30 hours a week. They can earn 120 hours a month, up to 120 hours a month.
So in his case,
Yes, ma'am.
he was only there supposedly with, on the contract, two weeks out of a month, every other. So it was hard to get 80% of the hours, so you had to give him a different kind of requirement.
As long as, exactly, his was based on 60 hours a month. That's how many hours he could possibly get to stay in attendance.
Girl, you had some paperwork to do.
This says hours per week, actually, 60. That's probably his equipment. Okay, so the other two women that wanted to take the nail course, what did they give you? How much money did they give you?
They gave me their deposit for their kid $800.
And they
Yes,
never
ma'am.
sat in the classroom. Did they get their kid?
They were coming back to school. Well, nobody gets, the kid stays on the premises so they can stay clean. They were to come back to school the next day, and then they called. They didn't just not come. They were scheduled to be back at school the next day. And then on 4 occasions came up while they called and said, we'll be back next week, we'll be this month. The younger lady, daddy was coming, father was coming in from overseas.
Right, but she never sat in the chair in a classroom,
No, ma'am.
and you never gave her a refund.
I didn't charge her for tuition when she sit in the classroom. That
The $800.
That's for the kid.
But she didn't get a kid.
She didn't come back to pick it up. As a matter of fact, I asked, she came, every time they came, Michelle, I said, take your kid, you paid for your kid. They said, we can't do nothing with it. I said, but you pay for this. They can't, when they call me, I said, they asked me to sell their kit for them. I said, I can't sell it.
Any other questions?
So what are you saying?
No, her calculation was
So, right here, you add all that? Yeah. No, that's 69, because you got the 800.
$800.
61 and 8 is 69.
The registration fee on there, $100.
There, 100, no, 6075 and 6975. That's this and that's kind of all.
Okay, y'all gotta either be on the record or save it for deliberation.
So what now?
Oh, okay, no more board member questions. Do you have any redirect, Mr. Landry?
Yes, I note on your contract, do all your contracts reflect that there's a non-refundable
Yes, sir.
cost of $800?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Do you have any more witnesses or evidence testimony?
That's it. That's all I have.
Ms. Morris, you have any rebuttal? Okay, it's 5:00. What's the board's pleasure? Do you guys want closing arguments from them now? Do you want them to, has anybody written proposed findings, Ms. Morris?
Started to, but I didn't complete them.
A lot of, sometimes when we had a case before, we got them to submit proposed findings to us. And then at the next meeting, you can deliberate. Do you want to deliberate now without having proposed findings? I mean, I think, you know, the testimony from the other day has been transcribed. Some people might want to look over it, and might need some more time. So, board pleasure. Huh? I want to go to executive session to deliberate. Do y'all want closing arguments? Huh?
Do they want to give closing arguments? Right? Don't they have to offer?
Yeah.
I would like to.
Okay. You want a minute? Okay.
Board members, this case was filed due to the large number of complaints we had about a school with relatively few students. It seems that there are numerous misunderstandings as to number of hours, as to cost to attend, as to what time to arrive at school, what type of equipment's going to be provided. And for the number of students, that's a very high percentage. This school is operated with a single instructor when the state law clearly says a minimum of 2 instructors. Mr. Rell testified that instead of getting clarification from the board, she consulted other sources and concluded that she didn't have to have a second instructor, so continued to operate her school with a single instructor. Like her interpretation of the very easy to understand 2 instructor rules, she employs misunderstandings or misconstructions of a lot of rules or things that apply to the school. And I think that's evident because we had a number of students that came here that were confused about how much money they owed. They unequivocally said that they were not provided with current posting of their student hours. They asked repeatedly for their number of hours and then ultimately got reports from the board, which Ms. Durrell now says are not accurate reports. But it seems to me that she would have looked at that way before today. And in the case of one student, she is advised today that has reported somewhere around 700 hours, that there's a miscalculation of 180 hours. And in order to get a miscalculation of 180 hours, when you can only report so many hours a month, those have to be numerous errors in numerous monthly reports. There are errors, I think, in every document that's been introduced. Mr. Prejean's contract says that he was registering for 60 hours per week. That's prohibited by our rules. That exceeds the amount of hours you can attend school in a week. Ms. Durrell testified that her student can earn about 30 hours a week. He was very clear in his statement that he worked offshore when he began school. He made it very clear that he would only attend approximately 2 weeks out of the month, and that Ms. Durrell was amenable to working around that. But yet, Mr. Prejean, who has completed the coursework required, is unable to be licensed and complete his tests because he can't obtain a clearance over a misunderstanding over the number of hours he owes. Looking at the contracts that have been introduced, they're all inconsistent as to the price, as to the amount to be charged for the overage. They seem to be all over the board, and so there's really no wonder that there's a lot of misunderstandings. With respect to Tram Win, it's clear that Tram Win, based upon the records that Ms. Durrell brought with her today, that individual paid $4,000, completed the entire course, and didn't have the qualifications to be a student in the school, yet was allowed to continue through the entire course. So that's another student that hasn't been tested or licensed that paid a lot of money. It seems like a lot of people have paid a lot of money to Ms. Durrell, including Zolavic and Jasmine, who came thinking they were going to start school, then decided not to go forward with being students there, and paid money for kits they didn't receive, courses they didn't receive. In a school this size, it just is extreme to have this percentage of misunderstandings, people that attended courses not knowing when they were going to finish, not knowing how much money they were going to owe, not knowing when they would be able to take the test. It just does not seem to be a school that's operated with consistent policies in accordance with the rules and the statutes that apply to schools. It's for that reason that I request that this board take some action remedial to assist these students who, some of them have testified they've cashed in life insurance policies, they've saved up money, they've maxed out credit cards, they've done everything they could to afford the tuition, to try to obtain a skill, to get a job, to support their families, and instead they are involved in a situation where they've spent their life savings and not gotten the education that they bargained for. So I would ask the board to do what they can to assist the students first, but to prevent this from happening to other students. And for that reason, I ask that you revoke the license of Iberia Cosmetology Institute.
All right, well, one thing we know for sure is she's been in business for, I think, 12 years. She's been, more than 12 years she's been in business. There have been very few, if any, significant complaints against this school, and I think you heard Ms. Stockstill, who's the inspector, saying that on every occasion that she has visited the institution, that the school was in compliance, that she did not find there to be problems here and there. Now, one thing that I think is very consistent in the testimony that we heard previously and the testimony we heard today is that, some students don't want to pay what they owe. And basically, they get into a dispute about money, and then they decide, we don't like it anymore. We paid this money, or we're not going to pay this money, or they owe our money. I don't understand you know, if they owe her money, as Mr. Prejean owed money, continued to owe money. And he said he had no complaints about the school. He was very specific about that. He said the only thing he had a problem with is the fact that he owed some money. There was a dispute over the money that he owed. So Mr. Wynn was fine with everything until he realized that he had to pay some overage. You know, I mean, you can say what you want about the fact, well, it said 60 hours, but if you look at the application, it said 1,500 hours in 52 weeks, you know, with regards to hours per week. Well, that obviously was some sort of a misprint or whatever the case may be when it came, or whoever. He signed the agreement, I'm assuming, you know, he may have put that in there that he thought it was gonna be 60 hours a week. It obviously wasn't. You can't get 60 hours a week. Number one, and number two, it said hours over, 1,500 hours over 52 weeks. So if you break that down, that comes out to 28 to 30 hours a week. You know, things like that happen. And she testified, yes, you know, if she came in here, I'd be more shocked if she came in here and said she never makes mistakes. And said people never make mistakes. And that this is just the way it is, and that, you know, that these things occur. We understand that. We are human. You know, she did have a single instructor. There's no doubt about that. She misinterpreted the rule. I'm not going to sit here and argue that she didn't, because since 2010, apparently the rules were changed and it was going to a second instructor. She interpreted to believe that she needed one. So the only two times, that she was shown a violation was in the last inspection of 2014 and the first inspection of 2015 by Ms. Stockstill. She has rectified that problem. She has another instructor. I don't know why Ms. Stockstill didn't do it previously, except that she didn't understand what the rule was as well. I think that was her testimony today, is that, well, I wasn't real sure that that was the case. Well, we have our own inspectors going out there, and they're not real sure. But that has been rectified. There has been some mistakes made in some of the paperwork. She does admit that under the circumstances. There's money owed by most of these people. Some of them have quit. Some of them have decided they don't want to come back. Some people got disgruntled for whatever reason, but that was the case. As far as the number of hours are concerned, yes, she points out occasions where Ms. Hartman, I believe it was, said, you know, or she testified that, yes, I made a mistake on the hours. It should have been 180 hours more in her calculations on the mistake on the entry that she made. Regardless, even with the 180 hours, Ms. Hartman was still not qualified to take the written exam. She still didn't go back to get her necessary hours. I think Ms. Hartman indicated she wanted to take the exam, but she didn't qualify. She didn't have a sufficient amount of hours. With regards to Ms. Tram, again, you know, from the standpoint of looking at her student enrollment application that she filled out, she indicated she had a GED. Later, I think she told Ms. Durrell that she did not have a GED. So Ms. Durrell did everything she could in her power to try to get her qualified, including taking what I believe has been referred to as the Wonderlic exam, and I don't believe that was acceptable to you folks, or became acceptable to you folks under the circumstances. But there is some inconsistency, you know, with regards to, I think, the amount, I think ma'am had indicated earlier with regards to how much for the overage. She settled the overage with the gentleman. He still refused to pay. I'm assuming it's acceptable that in the event they don't pay, that she doesn't have to show that they completed the course for purposes of taking the exam. I don't know how the arrangements were made here when Mr. Prejean comes in and he gets to take the exam without her giving the appropriate authority. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Mr. Young apparently made that decision. But, you know, she's been in business for a long time. Things have gone well. According to your inspectors, she keeps a good shop. There have been some mistakes made. There's some disgruntled people who do not want to pay their tuition or do not want to fulfill their obligation as well. I don't believe that, you know, anybody has come in here and testified that she does a poor job. I think we've had testimony that she does a nice job. She does a good job. Mr. Prejean notably, and he's taken his exams. He said more than one occasion, I do not have any complaints about Mr. Earl. All I have a complaint about is we have a disagreement with regards to money. Mr. Earl has been very specific about assisting the students. There's been previous testimony by some of the prior witnesses that also said, yes, she was there, you know, and also indicated they didn't have any complaints as well. You know, I just think that there has been some misunderstandings. I don't believe it's anything that's not been rectified. I believe that if you take it at face value, that a lot of these people did not appropriately fulfill their end of the contract. Some of these people did. She has 6 students now. You can't bring that. That's probably the smallest amount of enrollment that she has had, is 6 students. So I don't think you can translate that into saying, well, because of the smallness of the school, well, then, you know, you should not expect this many complaints. This is probably the lowest enrollment she's had in quite some time. I attribute some of it to the fact that all this is probably going on, or whatever the case may be. But I do believe that Ms. Durrell in her own testimony has indicated that she has tried her best to resolve and rectify these problems. I do not believe it justifies revoking her license. I can understand there being some indication that, you know, she needs to clarify various things, she needs to resolve certain issues, but revoking her license, I believe, would be extreme under the circumstances. And I ask you, please, you know, in your deliberations and in your decision-making, take into consideration the good things that have been done and the number of years that she has been in business without complaints and without violations. I would have expected the inspectors to come up with a litany of violations over this period of time. We have all the inspection reports. Ms. Morris has them as well. You have them. And everything is in compliance, with the exception, I think, when she had to go to 2 instructors. And once that was cleared up, she went to 2 instructors. So, you know, please, you know, I actually let you be very thorough in your investigation and thorough in what you do, and certainly not revoke her license to continue doing what she has been doing for years and years. Thank you.
Ms. Levy, can I clarify something?
I don't believe so. That's it.
Yeah, make
Make a motion to go into executive session.
I said it.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're back in session. The board has met on the issues at hand, and we have decided to postpone the deliberation for this particular case until June 29th, is that right?
July.
July 13th,
13th.
sorry, right.
13th.
13th. And in the meantime, we would like to.
Is that a regular board meeting day?
No, we moved
We're
regular
gonna-
board.
we're gonna
Trying to
move-
move forward.
For the July.
Okay.
You gonna be?
So the proposed findings of facts need to be sent to Ms. Celia so that we can have that tomorrow.
They want y'all to send, each side send me, and I'll give you my email address, I'll write it down for you. Send me, about 2 weeks from today, each side submit proposed findings of fact in each case.
From 2 weeks from today.
Yeah. If y'all want another week, get together.
Yeah, I'll talk to her. I got some big things I gotta take care of.
Okay, but we want them soon, we don't want them
Yeah,
we want them more than 2 weeks before July 13th. We want them just, you know.
So you want to do 3 weeks from today?
Yeah, 3 weeks from today, is that okay?
yes.
Does that help?
Yeah, 3 weeks from
It's
today,
just too much to decide in a 30-minute time span.
which is the 28th, June
Okay.
29th. June 29th?
June 29th.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
He's
what
making-
I
oh, that's for
find.
that,
There's no
okay.
specified.
They have to have the policy.
Not on the 29th.
Gotcha.
3 weeks from today would be the 22nd.
I usually.
That's what it's
27.
whatever.
Today's the first.
Today's the first.
Their time can be. We just need to review
It's the
them at least,
22nd, it's not the 29th. It's June 22nd.
at least a few weeks before.
And we can get copies of the transcript if we so choose. We have to go.
You have to talk to Ellen, yeah?
As she smiles.
Yeah, she'd be happy to give me copies.
We have the transcript.
Glad you were
already.
taking
But she's all, I know she did in the first
Well,
round.
it's just in rough draft format right now.
I'm okay with rough.
I mean, I can get the whole thing done in a week or so.
Okay.
Unless I'm dying when I go to the.
Don't die. Okay.
So let's go with the dates again.
Okay, so by June 22nd, both parties are going to submit proposed findings of fact, proposed conclusions of law, and a proposed board order to my office, to me via email, and I'll take care of distributing it since Steve's, to the people. Since you're going to have the transcript and you're going to have the exhibits, if you get a copy of the exhibits, it'll be nice and it'll be helpful if you are making a point that you think that the evidence shows X, Y, or Z. Go ahead and cite the page of the transcript if you want, cite the exhibit number if you want. That'll be helpful to the board in seeing where you're going and where you're coming from.
I'm sending y'all an email that you'll have.
Yeah, I think, Sherry. And now I think the board wants to make a,
Well, we have several.
yeah.
One, we need to make a motion to move the July 6th meeting to July 13th. No, you can
Tasha, they weren't happy.
I can pass the
with
second
being-
meeting.
I know. We're
Is
gonna,
that okay,
we're gonna move
Tasha?
those to August. You and I will work on it tomorrow.
Okay, all in favor of moving the meeting to July?
Aye.
Aye.
Any no's?
There's an expectation, I assume, that we're here on the 13th. I mean, we would be here on the 13th for the ruling.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I didn't know how that was.
You don't have to come, but.
Oh, I know, yeah.
We will deliberate on it.
You would deliberate on the 13th as well?
Right.
And what time will you start deliberating?
Well, we don't know if we'll be finished, so,
On the 13th?
right.
Okay.
We're not gonna make it stay all day.
I know,
Okay.
yeah,
What time
we
will you
can make
reconvene
mistakes.
on the 13th?
The board meeting's supposed to shine. We don't know what our documents are.
Do we want to do one? Set them to come at one, maybe?
Huh?
Like we did today?
Is it Monday?
Yeah, Monday.
I'm just making a suggestion. I don't know what anybody.
Sit and wait all day.
You probably charge us
Doesn't matter, whatever else. We'll let you know.
Okay.
Good idea.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm okay with
We all have email.
that. Yeah. Now, should have my email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go?
Pardon me?
Thank you.
Thank you.